Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. So today we're going to talk about the latest updates of SOCA, the social data add-on to ecoinvent. But before going to the core of this webinar, we would like to also present ourselves. So my name is Chiara De Grandis. I'm a sustainability consultant at GreenDelta, take care of communications. And I am really happy to have today with me Shravya and Ashaka. They are also sustainability consultants at GreenDelta, and they are quite expert in the social LCA world. And namely, today Ashaka will lead you through this webinar. Before leaving the floor to her, I would also like to say a couple words about our company, GreenDelta. So we are mostly known for our open source LCA software, openLCA, but we actually also developed other tools such as online LCA and openLCA collaboration server. You can find them in our website in case you're interested. And like I said, we are also sustainability consultants. So of course, we follow both private and public and European funded projects that you can see here. And we also contribute to database development and distribution. You can find all our databases available in openLCA Nexus, and among them, you can see we also have SOCA, of course, that we are going to talk about today, and PSILCA. On this note, if you're interested, we had a really nice webinar at the beginning of October, in case you want to catch up. It is available on YouTube. Before leaving the floor to Ashaka, just a final word. Please feel free to write your questions in the Q&A section here in Teams, because we are going to collect them so that we can have a discussion at the end of the webinar. So thank you, and yeah, I'll leave the floor to Ash.
You can hear me now? All right.
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Chiara, for the introduction, and thank you all for joining, of course. In this webinar, we will cover a bit about the background and motivation behind the SOCA database, how it was actually developed. We will also showcase a bit of how the results look like, so you are aware of how the database looks like in case you would like to eventually purchase the database, and a bit of talking about how it is different a bit from SILCA, and how it's on a different structure level. And we will also discuss how we are intending to do a future improvement. And finally, we will take your Q&A, we will take your questions. So in case if you have questions in the future, I mean, not this future, I mean, right now, you can put them in the Q&A rather than the chat. So use the Q&A feature that you can see in front of you, please. And Chiara will collect them. But before we do that, before we jump into the webinar, I would like you all, if you would wish to participate in a quick survey. So I'm sharing my QR code, but also my colleague will share the link on the chat. So yeah, to scan this so that we are able to do a quick survey about SOCA. And yeah, I will give you a couple of minutes to grab your cell phones, or if you want to use your website, your link. So yeah, your computers, I'm sorry. And the link should be on the chat too. I think Chiara or Shravya, you can send them. Yes, thank you. Okay, so the first question was if you heard before about SOCA. So this is just a quick slide. So I'm going to give you some time to connect and vote a bit. And for those still joining, you can still put the QR code. Maybe I can split my screen too so that you can be able to see them both. So I'm going to put the QR code on the side here if you want. Oh, I'm sorry. I closed the screen. But the link is on the chat if you want it. I'm sorry about that. All right, perfect. One more minute, and then I will swap the screen. So this is the first question. Now the second question would be, Did you use SOCA before? So if yes, did you use it before? No. Okay, great. I mean, this is really good because the less people we have who use SOCA, the better, because then I can eventually convince you to get SOCA, hopefully. All right, so now we can stop. Like I clearly see that some of you heard about this, but some of you didn't hear about this. But then most of you hadn't used SOCA before, so this is the perfect webinar for you to attend. So let's get started. So, so all of you know obviously ecoinvent, and it's like an internationally recognized database, and you have of course used it before. Several studies. It's referenced probably a million of times by many papers, many research projects, and so on. And it includes actually, besides the environmental impacts, you could also notice that it also includes costs. So this is something that I will show you later on in the database, but it lacks social information, or it lacks information on social impacts. And this is how the idea of SOCA came. It was actually developed a long time ago. It's not something recent, by the way. So this is the 4th version that we have. So the idea was to insert social information into all of these processes in the ecoinvent, so that you're able to perform more or less a rough life cycle sustainability assessment, where it combines your social LCA, your environmental LCA, and life cycle costing. At the moment, SOCA database is limited to the openLCA platform, and I think it would probably continue in this way, unless of course some feature like change may just want us to change the database into a different software. The methodology is basically mapping. So we know SILCA database, which is a popular social LCA database, is that we move the data from SILCA into ecoinvent using mapping based on the processes that are based on the either the location and the process or sector of the ecoinvent. So we will see the examples together. So we are basically moving raw values per each of the 106 social indicators. So SILCA version 4 has 106 indicators, and so does SOCA version 4, which is the latest release, has 106 social indicators. And they're mapped based on the location and the process sector that's defined by ecoinvent. So let's say, for example, we have the first case where you have, for example, direct, like perfect matches, like in like scenario 1. Like let's say in SILCA, there is a Brazil, country for the country Brazil, there's a sector hotels. And in ecoinvent, we have a process that is called building operation luxury hotel that is mapped to, or that is based on the location of Brazil. So in this case, the mapping is just direct. However, sometimes we don't have perfect matches, like for instance, the idea of agriculture. And ecoinvent is rather product specific. It's not a sector thing, but rather SILCA is more of a sector. So in this case, we usually try to look for broader categories and try to fit several averages from like different sectors into one. So, but what if a process from ecoinvent could fit into several sectors from SILCA? Because let's say we have agriculture, and then we have growing of foods, and then we have many things. So there are many sectors that a product could fit into several sectors, because sectors are rather also, they're not very broad in SILCA, but rather they're disaggregated. So you can find many fittings into a single product or a single process. In this case, we take an average of different sectors from SILCA, and then we put it into the process in the ecoinvent. Location. So basically, SILCA is based on country distribution. However, SOCA, on the other hand, is defined by country, but also some countries are rather defined by even like cities. Like for instance, Canada, there's Yukon. However, in this case, these processes, we often just take the country information that we have and map it to the process itself, although the process is not defined by country, but rather a region or a city within that country. However, we think that, of course, this is an area of improvement, and this is something that we work on. Throughout the slides, you might see this icon here on the right-hand side, which shows like where do we want to improve our information. Next case, let's say, is the transnational regions. Like, for instance, we have Asia, we have Africa, and so on. So this screenshot is from openLCA software. If you open the database, you would find it very like in the under indicators and parameters, you find it there. It's for the locations that is defined in the database. So basically, if we have a process, an ecoinvent that is based on an entire continent, then we, of course, identify all the countries that make up that region or that continent. And for each country, we find the best matching social sector for that process that we're mapping, and we take an average, of course. So you pretty much it's a lot of work, to be honest, to do this. But yeah, we are striving to improve it, of course. And then we have the final case, which is the global and rest of world. So in this case, global is obviously, it's just global, everything that we have. So it's a very heavy mapping. In this case, we take everything, all the countries that we have, and of course, for each country, we see which sector in SILCA would make more sense to that process in ecoinvent, and map it to ecoinvent. While rest of world, so I think a couple of you already know, rest of world basically means the global minus any countries that are already specifically listed for that process in ecoinvent. So let's say for ecoinvent, it could be a single process, and you see the same process repeated, let's say 5 times. Let's say first 4 are per different countries, and then we have, let's say, rest of world. So rest of world supposedly means like the like everything except these countries are taken into consideration. And of course, we follow these kind of cues from ecoinvent. Now, regarding the evaluation schema in SILCA is exactly the same evaluation schema in SOCA. So we are not playing around with any risk levels. They're the same. The risk levels, if something is a high risk in SILCA, it's the high risk also in SOCA. So this is something that we keep intact. Now, let me walk you through a SOCA demonstration so that you're able to imagine how it looks like. I will share my screen again. 1 second. Window, where is it? Yes. All right. So I hope all of you see my openLCA screen. So this is the openLCA software, if some of you haven't seen it before. Yes. And over here we have the database and a database where they lie. So at the moment we have 2 system models produced for SOCA, which is the APOS and cutoff, which is the most like it makes sense to have them only both. So I will open for you, for example, the cutoff database. So over here, you would see it's exactly the same structure as ecoinvent. So if you worked with ecoinvent, this is how the sector distribution is made throughout the ecoinvent. And let's, for example, open any random process. For example, let me say barley grain production in Germany. So if I click on this process over here, I would see that in the inputs and outputs, the normal process, the normal everything, the inputs and outputs required to produce the barley grain. What's different from the SOCA cutoff version than the cutoff version, that's normal cutoff version, is that we have social flows. So over here in the output side, you will find the social flows. All right. So let me just sort them for you so that you're able to understand what I mean. So over here, we have almost 106 social flows, from child marriage to extraction of ores and so on. They're either the social indicator name and the risk level where they lie. And of course, this column talks about the worker hours, which we will come to explain in the next few slides. Again, you'll also see in the social aspects tab of this process, which is for Germany, over here, you will find the raw values. So usually we talk about risk levels and the inputs and outputs, but in the social aspects, you are able to see the raw values, the sources, the data quality, and everything else. So everything is defined with respect to this process, which is Germany. All right, so this is just a quick structure of SOCA and how it looks like. You're also able, if you scroll all the way down, wait, let me just switch it off. If you scroll all the way down to indicators and parameters, I'm sorry, social indicators, these are all the social indicators that are available. They are, of course, split across stakeholders through which you will find the themes, and of course, you'll find the indicators and how are they defined and so on. So this is just a quick overview of SOCA. So the normal database, but with social flows. Now, let me switch back to my presentation. Yes. So we have looked at SOCA, how it looks like, typical ecoinvent, so it's not really complicated at all. And now let's perform a quick calculation of a process to see how the results look like. We're of course used to the environmental impacts process, but in this demonstration, we will show how the social impacts would look like. So let me go to my window again to openLCA. And then let me calculate the impacts for this process. I will go to general information and perform a direct calculation. I'm not really interested into like setting up anything. The impact method that comes along with the SOCA is of course all the impact method that is provided ecoinvent plus the social impacts weighting method, which is the method that is also used in SILCA database. This method is basically tries to weigh down the risks by defining certain characterization factors for each risk level. Maybe I can also show you a quick screen on like how it looks like. 1 second. So basically, the impact method over here, the social weighting impact assessment, these are all the categories that are present here. So in SOCA version 4 or in SILCA version 4, we abandoned the aggregation of different social indicators into a single impact category. So meaning if you have 106 indicators, you're going to see 106 impact categories. So basically, how do these like what do I mean, like what do the characterization factors looks like? It's the same across all the processes actually. So these are the characterization factors, and you can explore each one of them by clicking on the impact category and going to the characterization factors, like I quickly demonstrated. Now back to the results. So the results basically it's just the same landscape of results that you will see when you're calculating the environmental impacts. You will see, of course, your direct contributions and your impact analysis. So here all the impact categories and based on your processes. And the results here is basically in medium risk hours, which factors the worker hours and the risk level. These are the two things that are taken into consideration. However, if you want to take it a step further and analyze your results further, we have showcased this before in the SILCA webinar, but just to quickly brush upon this, is that you're able to also see the distribution of all of your processes, of all of your impacts from very low risk to very high risk or high opportunity to no opportunity, or if there is not applicable or no data and so on. So these are the things you are able to see, and then you're able to, of course, see your raw values over here. If you want to learn more about how this social assessment works, I recommend you check out the last webinar on SILCA, or you can also look at the SILCA version 4 manual, which is explained there. Regarding the locations also, which is an interesting tab to look at, this basically shows you, let's say, child or like, let's say children employment total, for example. So let's say there are, it's mostly coming from rest of world. And this is something, of course, we try to avoid as much as possible. But unfortunately, we have it in ecoinvent, so we cannot really control the mappings in the locations in ecoinvent. But yeah, this is basically how it would look like. So you would maybe start to consider things that are from the country specifically, and so on and so forth. So this is just a quick indication of the like the results of the SOCA database. Now, let's move on again back to the presentation. Okay. Now, we have talked about activity variable or worker hours several times. So let's see how is it done in SOCA. So in SILCA, this is another conversation. It's it's explained previously, but in SOCA, it's basically we get the hours per dollar rate that is defined in our like this is on the right hand on this side. This is the SILCA screenshot version 4. So let's say if I want to map from Australia to no, I think this is Australia if I'm not wrong, from like natural gas to natural gas, for example. So here the US dollar is defined, while in the process over here, this is the cost information that you will find by ecoinvent, which I mentioned in the first slides, that ecoinvent also constructs social data. However, it's important to note we simply just convert the worker hours per dollar to the worker hours per cost over here. So it's just a matter of conversion of costs. If there is averaging, we do averaging, just how in the previous mapping it was explained, if there's rest of world and so on. So it's very direct. We don't really play around a lot, but we also know that the costs used from ecoinvent are global average values, and they're not sometimes specific to a country. In fact, you might actually see 2 different countries with the same processes, with the same prices, and you can see this yourself. And this approach for sure distorts the worker hours to some degree, of course, and hence this is also an area of improvement where we want to improve. So say, for example, you are working on this process over here, natural gas production, or any process in your database. And then you say to yourself, like, I feel like this cost and everything seems very off, and I want to change the worker hours, for example. How can this be done? So this can be done in a very quick way. So changing an activity variable for a background process. Now I'm talking about the background process, not the ones that you're creating yourself. The ones you're creating yourselves, obviously you have a lot of control about this, so you can change it while you're building your database. So let me share my screen again. So let's say, for example, I am interested. It's sharing, okay. So let's say for this process again, which is the barley grain production. Let's say if I'm a person who is gathering and have good information on the worker hours here for the barley grain production in Germany. So let's say I feel this is not fulfilling this worker hours to produce 1 kilograms. I can, of course, change this further in 2 ways. The first way is that, I mean, and you have to change 2 parts, I'm sorry. The first part is in the inputs and outputs, and the second part is in the social aspects. In the inputs and output, this is a very this is a very easy part, which is basically taking, if you, for example, sort your, your flows by unit, basically the only flow, ecoinvent doesn't deploy hours for the elementary flows, so it's the only ones that have elementary flows are the social flows. So you basically select all your flows all the way until like you stop seeing hour. So let's say till here, and then you right click on them and click copy selection. And then you open Excel sheet. I will share my screen. 1 second. So for example, I will paste here all my flows, all right? And then over here, I simply change the what do you call it? The worker hours. Let's say I want it to be 0.04. It's just an example. And then I'll simply...
Sorry, Ash, your Excel is still loading.
Oh, yeah?
At least for us, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. 1 second. And now? Oh, wait. I can maybe switch sharing the screen, share screen. And now, can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I will start over. So basically, I had an empty delete. So I had an empty workbook. Okay, and if you noticed, I copied everything by right click and clicking on copy, and then going to the Excel, and then I just simply pasted there. And over here, I can simply change the value. For now, I'm going to put it, let's say 0.04, something very like just number. I'm going to just drag it all the way across. And if you want to make sure that you're selecting the right number of indicators, all you have to do is count the number of indicators in your column, which is 106, which matches the social indicators that we say we have in the database. After that, all you have to do is simply copy this, all of it, copy, go back to your database over here, and with these are still selected, first you have to remove selected, and then you have to paste. And then they're pasted. So this is the first part of your database, which is in the inputs and outputs to change the social information flow. The second part is in the social aspects tab over here. Now this requires a bit of like a workaround. If you go to tools and you go to developer tools and you go to SQL, so it's fine. You don't have to know SQL. There's a ready-made code that I would be like happy to share with you. So over here, I'm just going to copy paste it into the SQL. So this code says, for example, that you want to update the activity value. So activity value is basically this column here. It reflects the worker hours, okay? And you want to set it to a certain value. So we said 0.004. So 0.004, we're matching the inputs and outputs worker hours with the social aspects tab. And then everything here is the same except for this part or this ref ID. This ref ID is basically the ref ID of the general information and general information tab of the process. So basically the process or each process would have a unique ref ID, which is the UUID, and you just copy it from here, and then you simply paste it over here. And once you have done that, you just click on this run, and it says 106 rows updated. So let's get back again. Let me just click on, let's say, where was it? Save. Wait 1 second. And let me refresh. So you see now it's, wait. I'll run it again. 1 second. Why didn't it run? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. There was a small glitch. So now after I run it again and I refreshed it, now it's here, 0.004, and then the inputs and outputs, it should also be the same because this is something we have changed separately. And yes, this is just basically how you will change the activity variable. Just remember, you have to change it in 2 areas, your inputs and outputs and in your social aspects. Why? Because in your inputs and outputs, these flows are basically the ones that are being considered when you're calculating your impact analysis, general information, inventory results, and so on. These are considered in all of the tabs. The social assessment tabs basically reads the information from the social aspects tabs of the process. So this is something that you always have to remember. And yeah, this is for the changing of the activity variable if you wish. But of course, you have to also remember that you changed it. So if you change something, always make sure that you try to use the description, or if you want to like use a documentation tab, these are all little like text boxes that won't affect your calculations, where you can just record notes so that you remember that you have changed it from a certain value to another value. This is just something to do. And if you want to revert back to another value, all you have to do is run the same exact SQL code, but simply just change your activity value, and that's it. Like to the old ones, of course. And now back to my presentation, which is basically over here. So over here, how do we compare this with SILCA? So basically, when you're choosing your database, it's important to know how they're built and the way they connect the dots in the supply chain. And this is different, and it could really alter your results. So you look at 2 important factors: how supply chains are connected in this given database, and what a process actually presents. So let's take, for example, how supply chains are connected. In SILCA, we know that the sectors are connected using monetary flow. Basically, the entire SILCA database is based on an input-output table of EUR. There are other input-output database, by the way, such as GTAB, for example, and Gloria. These are all different input-output tables. So in the case of SILCA, the EUR is selected. But for SOCA, this is entirely ecoinvent. So you just ecoinvent process that you have, and the processes are usually connected using physical relations. So it could be built to, like, I'm not absolutely sure how the ecoinvent supply chain is built, but it could maybe reflect even a real world flow of materials for specific products. what a process presents. In SILCA, a process usually is it's a sector. So we're talking about, let's say, sugarcane sector in Brazil. So sugarcane sector could include many things. It could include the agriculture, administration. So many things are flowing into the sugarcane production because it's a very it's a huge sector, and monetary flows are not like physical flows. Like they're more or less connected throughout your entire supply chain. So you cannot really be you cannot seclude your process from the entire world. So there's always connection with other processes. While in SOCA, process usually presents an individual product, and usually the data for this product is often at the moment in ecoinvent is either global or regional average and not always specific to one country. A good example here is sugarcane production. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we see SILCA, where most of the inputs or most of the connections are local connections or national connections, I'm sorry, which is from Brazil. While on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side for SOCA, we have the locations are defined globally. This is maybe because this process is not still, let's say, for example, developed to be regionalized. However, this is a promise that ecoinvent claims, is that they want to improve regionalization by improving the finer geographic detail. And this is an announcement they have made this year, and I think it will show maybe I'm not sure if it will be in this year's release, but maybe in next year's release. So we also consider this an area of improvement, although we cannot really change anything because it's ecoinvent's own database. But we are hoping that this, of course, would improve by time. And that's why in the results, if you've noticed, when I was showing the location, we had rest of world at the beginning. This is just to show you what it means. Now, potential improvements is that we, of course, have to refine mapping when necessary for cities, search for representable costs to be used for basic worker hours, not the ones that we have in ecoinvent. This is something that we as a team would work on, and explore the idea of having a different activity variable. So at this stage, SOCA, when it was first made, it didn't have so many people buying it, or actually it was maybe like a handful of clients. But now, since it's growing, and we do this webinar also to see what kind of traction it had gained, and we also want to search for improvements. So if you maybe follow through this webinar and you want to pitch in an improvement that you want to say, this is a good time to do so. And let me share again my screen over here, which is basically, oh wait, before we go this, what features or before we go into this feature to be improved, I want to first ask you, what social base do you usually use in Social LCA? And then we'll jump on to the improvement of features. I'm hoping all of you can still vote over here. Okay. SHDB is a social hotspot database. It's based on the GTAP input-output table. All right, so most of you don't use database, which is really interesting, to be honest. I'm really curious, how do you do your for your life cycle? How do you do that for the life cycle impacts, social impacts? But of course, people can still use no database when they want to do their assessment or their social impact in general. And I see some of you already know SILCA, and a few of you know SHDB. So yeah, quite the audience that we have here. And now, for my final question, I would like to ask you, what features or data points do you think SOCA can be improved? Like, if you have any comments on it or improvements on it, you can post it here right now. I will leave you maybe like 5 minutes, and then, I'm sorry, 3 minutes, and then we will get back to the presentation. So take your time trying to answer this. Oh, and I want to say something. SOCA, the social impacts are in all the processes except for the market processes, because the market processes in ecoinvent are basically like the averaging of all the processes. So if you have it in the market, it will be like kind of double counting the social impacts over again. So FYI. All right, while you pitch in your improvements over here, like I will leave it open, so feel free to type in your improvements. And in the meantime, let me switch back to my presentation and tell you some few things about SOCA. Documentation is available on Nexus. So if you go to nexus.com and go to SOCA database, which you will find over here on the left-hand side panel, you will find that the SOCA documentation, this is basically everything that I said in the presentation, but with more text. And then how do you get SOCA? This is very important for everyone interested. First, you need to have an ecoinvent license. Either you already have a license from somewhere else, but you just have to convert it to be used in openLCA, or you can just buy the ecoinvent license from the Nexus website. After that, you're able to get the SOCA, because SOCA is an add-on. An add-on meaning it relies, like as you have seen, all the processes for ecoinvent are there, plus there's a layer of social information. That's why you also have ecoinvent license. SOCA is available in 2 system models only, cutoff and APOS, so the consequential model is not there. And it's a one-time purchase. You're entitled, of course, to a free update. So let's say if you buy SOCA version 4 and next year we have SOCA version 5, you can update for free, given that it's valid for 1 year since the purchase time. And finally, if you are interested to explore or to pitch in or show us your social LCA case studies, we have a webinar coming up by next year, like in Berlin here. So if you want to see Berlin in the springtime, I think it's cooler than the winter time. You can, of course, apply your abstracts by the 1st of December. We also have other topics where you can, of course, explore and apply to. And besides this, thank you all very much. And yeah, looking forward to see more of your features or data points or improvements to be here. I will leave this open for a couple of minutes and before I shut it down. And of course, your feedback is definitely considered, because we are really hoping to try to make SOCA more precise, to make it more feasible to people to implement a social LCA without to maybe lower the barrier of learning or understanding complicated social LCA database, for example. This is just a first step to learn social LCA. And yes, thank you all for attending, and we can have questions right now.
Yes, thank you so much, Ash. I really enjoyed the presentation and I hope our participants did too. So we received quite some questions. So I'm going to start and share the screen. Okay. So maybe first I will also answer a question we received in the chat that I didn't report here. You asked if this video will be made available. The answer is absolutely yes. You will find it in our YouTube channel. You can just type openLCA and you will find us in YouTube. Probably already today it will be available. Okay, so let's get started. First question, I am looking for a database to assess social impacts alongside environmental LCA studies. I had been looking at PSILCA, but I'm now wondering about if SOCA will make more sense. Is there any reason why you would use PSILCA over SOCA? Would you recommend one over the other?
I personally, this is a really interesting question and it's a very hot question, to be honest. So I would not recommend something over the other. It's just like we have seen in the poll, some people don't use a database even to do their social impact studies, for example. So it's really down to you and your decision. So the idea of SOCA is just to make it easier for those who are doing, like, let's say, like a normal LCA study, and they want to get an idea on how the social impacts would look like for the given processes, given that they know the where the process takes place and the supply chain. So like answering your questions, I would not recommend something over the other. I would recommend the SILCA if you want to really focus on like pure, like how supply chains are connected monetary value or economically, which could make more sense or more like it could give better, like maybe better results, I'm not sure, than the ones that are using the physical connections as supply chains. However, ecoinvent promised that they would improve their regionalization. So maybe in the future, SOCA would level up with the other social databases and they could all become on the same level to take an idea on how their like the results or the supply chain results would look like. I hope my answer made sense, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it
I mean,
does.
Shravya, do you have something to add? Since Shravya is also a SILCA expert here.
I would say the same. That SOCA
Yeah, all
has
right.
more coverage because of more complete supply chains.
Exactly, more coverage, yes.
But then SOCA, because it's built on ecoinvent, would have the you may find better keywords matching the process you want to model with SOCA, but then the supply chain is not as complete.
Okay, very interesting, I think. I hope this answered the question, but I think so. So next question will be, how can I easily calculate the working hours for a specific product system?
Okay, this is there are many ways to calculate worker hours. I can tell you the most direct one is basically trying to, like the most specific one is if you go to the industry itself, like let's say you're constructing your own foreground system and you're collecting like your normal environmental and for LCA information. You can also ask, for example, how long does it take to, for example, construct or to develop a certain physical output given the units, of course. So it's just a direct thing, like how much like hours spent to produce 1 kg of something or 1 meters cube of something. So this is the direct way to like to just get it without any calculations from the producer or from the industry. Alternatively, you can of course check out in our SILCA manual. We propose another method which is based on using the unit labor hours and also the average working hours. It's just like some references. We set up an equation there. We explain how to do it, but it's based on secondary information, and this is like a weaker. If we're sorting like precision of data, it's going to be the weaker option, of course. So these are the two common ways, and then finally, if you open SILCA or if you have access to SILCA database, or even actually in SOCA, you can see, for example, if your process you're creating is similar to an existing process in the background database, you can simply copy the worker hours from there. But this is again a third or like a secondary information, so it's another like not pretty precise option, but it could gives you at least like an idea of how the worker hours would look like in your system. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Ash. And then we had quite some questions about the code, of course. People are interested about it. Maybe on this note, I can also answer saying that after this webinar, we will send a follow-up email with some useful resources. We will tell you where to find the video, where to find the database, and we can also put this information there, I would say, if you agree,
Yeah,
Ash.
all right. I will share it, yes, with you.
So everyone can.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there was something else, and I also saw other questions came in the Q&A session, but for the moment we can stick to the slides. So is information on the mapping of each ecoinvent process available?
Can you repeat? Oh, wait, is the information on the mapping of each ecoinvent? No, it's not available. This is something, I mean, we explain in general how we do it, but like specifically each point, this is something that's like part of our data, I don't know, secret data privacy. Yeah, something like this. Yeah. But if you have specific questions on a process and something, you can send us an email and we can, of course, share it or discuss it with you, but it's not publicly available.
Yeah, indeed. That's nice to say. Like, we are always available, of course. If you have further questions, just contact us and we are here. Do you have plans in the future to do this, SOCA, for wider databases beyond the ecoinvent, for example, the PF and EF databases?
We didn't have plans until you mentioned it now, but I could definitely pitch this into the group and we will see, maybe we would have it, but yeah, it could be an option, of course.
And then where can I find the descriptions of the social indicators for SOCA? Is it the same as PSILCA?
Yes, They are the same as SILCA, and you can see this under the SILCA manual. If you go to the Nexus website, the same website where you can find documentation of SOCA, just go to the SILCA part, and over there on the documentation, you'll find the SILCA version 4 documentation. It's quite detailed and comprehensive. You will find all the description of the social indicators and where do we get them from also is mentioned.
Perfect. And then maybe I'll stop sharing because we have a couple of questions in the Q&A section here. So how much does it cost?
Wait, I'm not sure. I forgot.
Yeah,
But
no,
I mean,
but
SOCA alone as an add-on, I think that you have two license. I'm sorry, excuse me. You have two license, the academic and the commercial. So you'll find on openLCA Nexus website. I cannot.
yeah,
I don't
indeed.
know. I cannot really open it right now.
But this is something we will share
Yeah,
after the webinar.
exactly.
So within the email, we will send you the link
The prices.
to check
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
exactly.
And then, oh, Shavia, yeah.
I don't know if we already discussed this one. If you have a big product system model in the ecoinvent database, how do we move it?
Yeah, it was the last
SOCA.
question, I think. Yeah. So it is, if I have a,
Yes.
yeah, sorry, I'll read it out loud so also people that see the webinar afterwards have an idea of it. So if I have a big product system modeled in the ecoinvent database, how easy can I copy these processes to SOCA, or do I have to model my processes again from scratch?
You can simply extract your processes on your product system by right-clicking on them. And I imagine all the processes that you have are the foreground information, for example. You can extract it from your ecoinvent database as a JSON LD, and then just import it into the SOCA database as a JSON LD, and then create your product system over there. So just move the processes, and the product system, you have to establish it there better. I want to say something. Make sure that you are also, if you're moving it from different ecoinvent version, I don't think it will be a huge problem unless, of course, you're moving it from 3.6 to 3.11. This could be maybe a trick or a hassle. But if you're moving it from 3.10 ecoinvent version to SOCA version 4, which is based on 3.11, then it could be fine, like not like a huge hassle to connect to the background database again. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm checking if there is any other question, but not here. We have a thank you so much. It was wonderful, which is always nice to hear. And okay, if there are no more questions, again, you will find this video on YouTube, you will receive an email, and of course, if you have any further questions, we remain available. You will have our emails because we are going to send a follow-up. So I would like to thank you all for the participation, and of course, thank you, Ashrakat, for the presentation. Thank you, Shava, for the support. And I would say see you hopefully at the next webinar.
Thank
Bye,
you all.
everyone.
Have a lovely week. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.